Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the regular Hamlet City Council meeting. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll ask at this time that we have a moment of silence, and we need to keep the Strickland family in our thoughts in the passing of Butch Strickland.
Also, Thad Ustrey's wife, Mary Jane, passed.
Thad Ustrey's wife, Mary Jane, passed away. Okay.
Today.
At this time, we'll have a moment of silence. Amen. This time, council, I'd ask for an adoption of the agenda. I have had a request to put in item 6A, which is a discussion on water leaks on secondary meters. What are your wishes on this, council?
Make a motion to approve.
With change.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Thank you. You have before you the minutes from the regular October 13th meeting, and you have also had passed around to you the closed session minutes. What are your wishes on those?
Move that we approve.
Got a motion for approval? Did I get a second?
I second it.
Okay, I got a second. Thank you. At this time, we'll go along to item number 5, which is a comment from attendees. This is for anything that is not on the agenda for tonight. If there's anyone here at this time that wishes to address the council on a matter other than what's on the agenda, we will please come forward. Okay, yes, come forward, please. State your name and.
Good evening. I'm Katrina Chance, and it's not on. Come down a little more. Is that better?
I don't know if it's on or not.
I believe it is on. I just don't think it's quite loud enough.
Hello?
Green light on.
There you go.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Katrina Chance, and I am the secretary for the Richmond County Crime Stoppers. And I have a couple of decals that I would like to present to the city manager. And they actually have our number on there for Crime Stoppers. So if I may. You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Is there anyone else out there has anything that's not on the agenda for tonight?
Any attendees want to talk? Anything you want to discuss? You want me to go back there and ask them?
They said they're not on the agenda.
On the agenda. All right.
No, I'm going to take it before I take 6. Okay, if there's not anyone else at this time, we'll close the comments for attendees. We'll move to new business. We put item 6A in there, which is discussion on water meters and leaks, and I'll let Mr. McQueen address that.
So I know we don't have all the information, and Gail's not here to be able to get it for us, but about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I had a citizen call me. They have 2 water meters. They've got one for their house, and they've got one for their irrigation system. Well, there was apparently some kind of malfunction, a busted pipe or something, and the next door neighbor found the backyard flooded, and his backyard had a bunch of water in it too. And she came up here to see if they could adjust it, and was told that there was a policy that said that we didn't adjust the second meters, we adjust the main meter. And I didn't know that was the policy at the time. And in checking into it, I've talked to a couple of folks, and to me, I mean, if you got 2 meters, the same meter, these folks paid money to put the meter in, and these folks pay the monthly bill, and it was, and I don't have the, I'm not going to verify this at all, but around a $200 difference in the meter through the course of the leak. And I know some have mentioned that there's a possibility of, people, doing stuff and not having an issue, but I would just like for us to consider at least looking into the fact that we afford the second meter the same privileges that we afford the main meter. I understand that it's happened a couple of times recently, but I just wanted to put this on here for us to talk about it and just see if anybody else had any ideas about that. A good deal of people have these second meters, and basically they don't pay for the sewer, they pay for the water. But if there's a legitimate issue with a malfunction or a busted pipe or something like that, is that something that we want to try to adjust whenever that occurs too? And I just want to bring it up and get the council's thought.
Were these people you're referring to, were they out of town or something as the reason they didn't notice it or spot it? Or?
At this point, they were out of town for part of the time, and the neighbor was going over to take care of something in their yard, and he observed the backyard was flooded.
So they were out of town or something at the time. And he didn't recognize it until his yard was flooded.
He actually went over and just walked up and seen it.
Well, his yard had water in it too.
His yard had water in it too. And I know you can't look at individual cases. That's why I wanted to bring it on and put it up for discussion about that as a policy concern. Because, I mean, some of these folks have got these meters and don't use any water and still paying, a monthly bill, or use very little. And, I mean, it's a business move. I mean, do we want to do anything about it, or do we not want to do anything
Let me
about
ask this. Jill, what is our policy on the first meter?
Our practice has been, as in policy, we can adjust the first meter, and our practice is to adjust it once a year. We've never adjusted irrigation meters. Most municipalities don't, as it's sort of a luxury, but some do. It's completely up to council. Our policy does not specify irrigation.
Yeah.
Well, but what Jesse's saying, and I see, they're only paying for water, but if we had paid to install that meter, but this individual paid to install the meter themselves, and I had one with my irrigation system, and it fortunately didn't leak enough. The concrete truck backed in over one of my irrigation heads and broke it off at ground level, so you couldn't tell that it was broken off until we looked out and the water was bubbling up out of the ground. And something like this can happen. But, I don't see it as a luxury. I see it something that's bought and paid for. And, when they adjust for primary meters, they require that you bring documentation where you purchased the things and had it fixed and so on and so forth. Because I just had one of those too, so thousands of gallons later. So, is there a reason we shouldn't do it? Can anybody tell me are there sound reasons for why we should not do this?
We just need to have a policy on it, I think.
That's exactly right, Mayor. I think, my suggestion would be, is I think there, I don't want to get into a point counterpoint. I mean, I think there's reasonable to expect that, as Commissioner McQueen said, or Councilman McQueen said, that, treat one like the other. I think the crux of that is designing a policy that is clear and actionable and answers the questions about what is legitimate and how do you, actually administer the policy. And I'd be happy to maybe try to put something together that adds some clarity to our adjustments in general and bring it back to council.
And kind of look around, like Jill said, and see what other people do and why they do what they do, and
First, I think one of the key things that I think we'll need to, or I think I would want to know as I kind of research this, is do we want to treat them as individual accounts, as where if you get do you get one adjustment for each, or as a customer do you get one adjustment period?
They're billed separately.
Okay, that's an important direction. And we can massage it, but if it's
water bills.
It's just like Ms. Covenant said, you definitely have to show that there was something that caused it to leak.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just come up here once a year and say, I had a leak and I want to get it adjusted.
No, you
Right,
have to have a
yes,
plumbing
You got to have,
bill or
yeah, I
something
mean,
like
so,
that.
now,
Documentation.
one other question, is the policy in place for that first one, or is it just previous practice? Because I heard you mention both, and I wanted to make sure I clarified that.
It's practice that we don't adjust for irrigations. It does specify, there's two different places in the policy. One specifies that customers will pay for all water that flows through the meter no matter what, but there's another section that I believe outlines the city manager has the authority to make adjustments.
Okay, does it specify
And we
whether
actually have something in writing we did ourselves of what we do.
Gotcha.
Practice for the
So-
once a year.
and that's just specifically for the primary meter that's got
Yes.
the sewage coming through it?
Yes.
Okay.
So we just need to clarify the whole thing for both.
Yeah, I mean, I
Both
think
meters.
you do. I think now's a good time.
Yeah,
to
have
do
it, have it in writing, yeah.
I really do.
Okay, that's good.
I'll do that.
Okay, anybody got a problem with that? It's just, okay. All right, so yeah, very good. Anything else on that? All right, moving along to item number 6. We've got public hearing number 1. It's a rezoning a parcel at 107 Locust Street. Jeff Graves has submitted a rezoning request for his property located at 107 Locust Street. The request is to rezone the property from residential 8 to residential 6. The planning board met on October 19th to discuss the rezoning. Their recommendation is to deny the request based on their interpretation of the factors that create spot zoning. I believe they're wanting to change it from a single residence to make it a duplex. At this time, we will open the floor to the public hearing. If there is anyone here tonight that wishes to speak on this, please come forward. Okay, state your name.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Constance Lanier, and I own property on the corner of Poplar Avenue and Locust Street at 500 Poplar, which I believe is approximately 250 feet from the said property of 107 Locust that Mr. Graves is requesting to be a spot rezone from R8 to R6. My home and property has been owned by my parents and myself for greater than 60 years, with current plans to stay in my family for many more years. I first need to let you know that I have been in the profession for caring for people for over 44 years, as well as living in different parts of this state. I have seen over time many different events occurring with different rezoning near a residential neighborhood. I'm here to speak against the spot rezoning request to change this property of 107 Locust Street from an R8 to an R6. I will be addressing this council and speak against what could happen in later years to this property if it is rezoned. As you know, I believe that once this property is spot rezoned, it will open the said property to different changes besides just allowing a duplex to be built. I am going to speak on several of these changes that can occur in later years if Mr. Graves himself, or even if an inherited family member decides to sell this property if it becomes an R6. First, a few of my most common concerns of rezoning to an R6 will be allowing this property to be used as a medical, dental, or other related offices. As you know well, this county, this country, and this city area is in an opiate crisis. This could allow, let's say, a methadone clinic to be placed there. We do not need a rehab-type clinic during the day open in our neighborhood. A behavior health clinic could be erected there. This could also be an urgent care medical center. I say this is not needed in a living residential neighborhood. As you well know, we have Richmond Community College here. If we rezone this, it will allow from to an R6, it will allow a college or university to place a satellite or off main campus clinic or classes to be placed there. Examples can be something as a car mechanic body shop, early childhood education school with children present here. It could be cosmetology, it could be nurse health care related issues. These are all areas that we would need for our learning. I do not think we need these type of classes in this area of the neighborhood. As you well know, library, museum, art gallery could come into this area. We do not need this type of buildings in this enclosed area. The city of Hamlet has many unoccupied spaces in the downtown district to allow this type of growth, but with an R6, this could occur in my neighborhood. A rezoning will allow a nursing or convalescent home as well as a group home care facility. Again, this can be a behavior health clinic where patients and clinics and residents can come. It also could be a place where we would see a lot of mental and substance abuse issues if they become residents in this area. Will the above spot rezoning allow a homeless shelter or residence to be placed here? I can tell you that most homeless facilities has rules that their clients during the day are required to be off the campus looking for a way to earn a living. Does this mean we have persons in the neighborhood looking for food, entertainment, even consumption of alcohol or other items, walking the streets of Pinecroft? I certainly hope this is not allowed. This can be prevented if this property is not rezoned. Of course, other rezoning guidelines allows this property to become a boarding or a home, a room and house, such as, again, a homeless shelter for a better description. We also know that tourist homes are allowed on an R6. These are such things as the bed and breakfast. Rezoning will also allow us as well for orphanage to go there, daycare center, and senior nursing facilities. An Alzheimer unit could be built there. Question is, how many clients could live here in that type of facility? I don't know. Will and can the number of residents be capped? Locust Street is a hill, and as you well, this is a safety issue if a person wanders off this property. I can assure you, if someone wants to leave an area, they will find a way. Injuries can and do happen more on uneven land. We know a multifamily dwelling such as condominiums as well as townhouses can be placed here. I'm not sure the exact size of this land and property if this could be built to accommodate it, but it could be possible. An ambulance service, as you went out, could be placed on this lot. We do not need an ambulance and rescue squad to be leaving from the area in a quick manner with sirens blaring. Safety and noise will be involved. Auditorium, coliseums, even a small sports stadium could be built here, which the traffic noise level and other activities will occur. This does not need to be in a family neighborhood. I'm sure Mr. Graves has good intentions, but is Mr. Graves saying that this area will never be changed from one set of duplexes? Is it going to be one set, or can you put more than one set of duplexes on there once it gets rezoned? Nor he or anyone else could guarantee a change will never occur in the future of this neighborhood. As the saying goes, this will open a can of worms for future endeavors or changes to this property. I also am seeing that many people who are not here to speak for or against this proposed rezoning. My personal opinion is because they were not aware of what's being asked to occur in our neighborhood. I know firsthand that I did not receive a letter of this spot rezoning proposal. I only found out while walking in the neighborhood, and a person questioned me if I knew about this proposal of a spot rezoning. I know it was posted on the Town of Hamlet's website dated October 27th, 2020. There is a sign that was placed in the last week on this property announcing a rezoning and to call for questions to City Hall, which I saw for the first time 5 days ago. Many residents do not have computers or internet ability to make themselves aware of life-changing issues in our neighborhood, as well as in the city of Hamlet. Many persons are not physically able to ambulate down hills, therefore not being aware of the sign that's been posted. Also, many higher health risk residents, as you well know, Pinecroft has got a lot of elderly residents, including myself, are not able to attend the meeting because of the fact of the COVID virus. So in closing, I want to thank this council for listening to me and for your consideration in this important matter. Again, I ask this council to please deny the request for 107 Locust Street to be a spot rezone from an R8 to an R6 for the safety of my future neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has comments about this rezoning tonight?
I guess I probably have to say something.
Okay. Hey, Jeff.
I'm Jeff Graves. I'm the one asking for it. when I bought the property, I was just gonna, after I looked at it, I want to apologize, I didn't make the rezoning with the board. I thought it was on a Tuesday and it was on Monday, and I talked to Gail the next day, and she had told me I missed the meeting, so. Anyway, I just wanted to come and say, when I went in it and realized it could be made a duplex, my intent is not to change the footprint of the house. And not to add another duplex, I don't even think there's enough room there for that anyway. But, it was to keep the original footprint of the house, turn it into a duplex. I knew that John Gardner had some right around the corner on Wilson, Bryan Land, I think he's got one in Pinecroft. I assumed it was already zoned for that. And somebody told me, said, you might want to check on that, and I called Gail, and she told me it wasn't, and told me what the process was. So, I come here to say, either way, I've got 5 duplexes in the city of Hamlet, and they're all very nice. I keep them up. I mean, I'm picky about, the leases and everything, because I've got a job. I don't want this to consume me, and I've had really good luck with my tenants. I keep everything up. They take care of it, and that's my intent going forward. I'm not. I mean, that's all I can tell you. Is my intent is to keep it good. My dad lives right behind it. The property's backyard's adjoined, so I'm not trying to do anything malicious, and my intent is to keep it long term. But I understand I'm at the mercy of the council, and I have to go along with what you say, and I will. And either way, I'm going to do the right thing, and either going to keep the property as a duplex, which is my intent, and if not, I'll do what I have to do to fix it up enough to sell it and let somebody else deal with it at that point. So, I mean, that's all I'm got to say. I don't need to. If anybody wants to ask me anything, they can. But I don't know what else to say other than that.
Okay, anybody, council got a question for Mr. Graves at all?
When
Okay.
you purchased this, were you aware of what the zoning was?
No, I was not aware of what
No,
the
he
zone
was
when
not.
I purchased. No. I really wasn't aware there was a lot of different zonings, if you want to know the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Graves. Do we have anyone else out there that wishes to comment? Please come.
Good evening, Mayor Bayless and City Council members.
State your name, please.
Oh, I'm getting ready to do that. My name is Meg Clark Pleasance. I am here in regards to the rezoning of the property located at 107 Locust Street in Pinecroft from Zone 8 to Zone 6 for the purpose of turning the existing home into a duplex. I have lived in Pinecroft all but 3 years of my life. Almost 26 of those years were at 106 Locust Street in the home that my daddy helped build. When I was growing up in Pinecroft, parents didn't have to worry about their kids. We played freely with the kids in the neighborhood, and the only thing we had to worry about was hearing our moms yelling for us to come home for supper. It was a wonderful place to grow up. But now, having lived in Pinecroft all my adult years, I have seen a drastic change to my neighborhood. Unfortunately, my friends' parents, along with my own, have gone. Since the first homeowners of Pinecroft are no longer there has been a slow decline of Pinecroft. More homes are being renovated and rented instead of being sold. And then there are the duplexes and triplexes, one of which is directly behind and across the street from where I live now on Maple Avenue. The triplex was there before I moved into my home that I have lived in since 1988. And I had no issues with the owner or the renters at that time. But within the past 10 to 15 years, especially since the transfer of property ownership, there has been a big change. I and my neighbors have experienced more disturbances from that one dwelling. The police have been called on more than numerous occasions. There is yelling, screaming, and profanity at all hours of the day and night. Car doors slamming and clothes being thrown out of the front door. of one of the apartments. On the morning of the clothes being thrown out, my backdoor neighbor, who has a clear view of the apartment building, and after hearing all the commotion going on, broke up what could have been a disastrous ending. He stopped a woman from using a tire iron she had just retrieved from her trunk of her car and was returning to the apartment to use it on someone when my neighbor intervened. My neighbor has cut the grass and removed tree limbs from this property because the owner will not take responsibility. While cutting the grass, he has found syringes on the property, as well as what could be considered animal cruelty. There is traffic coming and going all day long from these apartments, and many times with no regard to speed limits or stop signs. There is a duplex a couple of blocks down from the triplex I have mentioned that a neighbor has described as having similar issues. But since I do not have firsthand knowledge in this, I cannot comment any further on that duplex. I know this does not reflect on all rental properties, but to coin a phrase from Forrest Gump, renters are like boxes of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. Pinecroft was developed for single-family homes. Now, I can't do anything about the homes that are now being rented or the existing apartments. However, I can voice my opinion on property wanting to be rezoned for a multifamily dwelling or a number of other possibilities that can be put on that property having been rezoned. If this property is allowed to be rezoned, as Ms. Lanier said, you'll be opening up a can of worms that could cause Pinecroft to fall into an abyss, not to mention our property value will go down. It is not too late to save Pinecroft if rezoning is not allowed now or in the future. If God is willing, I hope to live in my Pinecroft home for at least another couple of decades. But in order to do that, I need to feel safe in my own home. I have nothing against Jeff Graves or his ownership of the property in question, whether he decides to renovate the place to rent as a single-family dwelling or preferably to sell. I do, however, have an issue against the rezoning. If this is allowed, how many more properties in Pinecroft will try to be rezoned? I ask your careful consideration in this matter, and I pray you will vote no to rezone this property. I thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak with you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else out there that wishes to speak on this? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening, Brother Chris.
Good evening, Brother Oscar. This is my wife, Tina Clark. I'm Chris Clark. We live on 106 Locust Street, which is across the street from 107. It's not directly, but it's kind of corner from us. We can see the front yard. We can see the front of the house. I'm here to say we're against the zoning. The reason is, and I have nothing against Jeff, I think the zoning was the problem. He can rent his house if he wants to, but when he converts it to a duplex, I have a problem with that. And that's what the rezoning will be. And I have a problem with his rezoning with what goes with it. I think what could come with it, with the rezoning. And my grandfather built that house. And just as my aunt, Meg Pleasance, has spoken, she was here because of my grandfather worked hard in that house. And I was lucky enough for 16 years ago, we bought the house. And I'm not planning to go anywhere. And what happens to that house across the street, I'm going to see. And I just want to say that I'm against the And I'm glad that Jeff did come today. We were here last month with the zoning committee. We didn't see Jeff here that night. I didn't get a chance to talk to him. But I still wish I can be able to talk to you. I have not yet. This is the first time I met Jeff. So I just want to say thank you for listening to me. And does my wife want to say anything? So I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's our front door, our front yard. We're right on the corner. We get the main traffic. We get right down Dogwood. We get Locust, and anything that goes in there down the road, we're affected big time. We have 2 small grandchildren. We don't need problems. It's not the here and now. It's what can be later on, and we're just nothing against anybody. It's just we don't want the rezoning. So basically, what those
Thank you, Chris.
said.
They spoke a lot for us. So
Yeah, thank y'all.
thank you.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you.
Uh-huh. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? Please come forward.
Hello, I'm Sue Nelson. I live at 107 Beach Street. Our property adjoins this property with a vacant lot in between. We just bought our house 7 months ago of this year, and the reason we bought it was an established neighborhood, and so we are against it. I think everybody covered everything else, but I wanted you to know how we felt.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate y'all coming.
Hi, y'all. I'm Michelle Singletary.
Pull it down.
Yeah, pull it down. There you go.
It's hard to get on your tippy toe.
I know. Michelle Singletary. I live on Beach Street. I didn't actually get a letter about the rezoning, but I do. I live right next to Van Billingsley's mother's old house, if you know where that is. We just recently got renters in that house back in July, and it's not been a good deal so far. I'm just against the duplex for the rezoning. I think that's going to bring property values down, but if he wants to fix it up and sell it or whatever, I'm not against that, but I just think that we shouldn't rezone. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If you wish to speak, if not, okay. At this time, I will close the public hearing. Council, I have before me at this time a consistency statement. On this consistency statement, I need to have a motion to adopt the consistency statement indicating the proposed change is or is not in accordance with the City of Hamlet's ordinance.
I so move.
Sir?
I make a motion.
Is or is not?
Before he does that, can you tell us the difference between the R6 and the R8?
I can venture a broad explanation, but the R6 and the R8 are just different use categories or different zones, and for each zone you have a list of permitted uses. And so a lot of the comments we heard tonight were about some of the other uses that are allowed in the proposed, what the property owner is requesting to rezone to. It's quite detailed, so I don't want to say, it's hard to say very narrowly, it includes these things without pulling up the ordinance and just reading through it. But anytime you do a rezoning, you are rezoning to that entire, all of those uses in that zone have to be followed.
Yeah, but specifically, can you get the specifics of the differences between each one?
The differences between each zone?
Yeah, between R6 and R8.
You want me to read the permitted uses for each zone?
I would like for you to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I've got it pulled up, Mr. McQueen, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, so this is the R8 zoning district, permitted uses. Let's see here. Article 6, table of permitted uses. Thought I had it pulled up. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, I apologize. Our ordinances. Okay, so under R8 and R6, big difference is that there are a lot more residential uses allowed in the R6 zoning district. So I'm looking at that, for example, boarding and rooming houses, and the citizen who spoke first, I think, covered a lot of them. I've got family care homes, which are allowed in both.
In both?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Those are actually required by state law to be allowed in all
Right.
residential zoning districts. Multifamily is, and that would include townhouses. Those are allowed in the R6, but not the R8. Two-family dwellings, which would be a duplex, is allowed in the R6, not the R8. Let's see here. And then single-family, of course, are allowed in both. Those are really the major differences. I'm kind of scrolling through here, and yeah, accessory dwellings are allowed in the R8 rather than the R6. They're
What's
just
that? I didn't-
accessory dwellings, so
Okay,
you know, like
okay.
a granny house and back. I am looking at some of the non-residential uses, and the citizen again correctly stated, so colleges and universities are allowed in the R6, not the R8. Let's see here. Hospitals, libraries, museum and art galleries, nursing and convalescent homes, orphanages are all allowed in the R6 and not the R8. And medical, dental, or related offices. So I don't know if that's the same thing as a methadone clinic, but it's something we could look at if we needed to. Let's see here. Tourist homes, which is kind of an old-fashioned term, but it's sort of like a boarding house, or you know, kind of like a bed and breakfast. Allowed in the R6, not the R8.
Would you say then that R8 is more residentially restrictive?
Yes, ma'am, it is. It's really geared to be a single-family home district. Yes, ma'am. For the most part, that's correct.
What,
A little extra stuff, yeah. Right.
Sorry, sir?
Yeah, I understand.
what about a daycare?
Let's see if we can find that, Mr. Sellers. And of course, the reason it takes a while is Matt and I just have to sort of scroll through the table of uses.
Daycare, excuse me, there are several different daycare, uses for 5 or less, 6 or more, it differentiates between child and adult, and it also differentiates between 6 or more, or 5 or less. So there's 4 total daycare uses. It looks like all of those are permitted in both zoning districts.
In what?
Both.
R6 and R8?
Correct. Those are specifically, well, they're in both, so it doesn't particularly matter.
Jeff, what's the square footage of that house and the lot size?
I don't know lot size. I could probably pull it up on the tax record right now. I could probably pull up.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, but I can't read it. It's blurry.
What I was gonna do as a two-way.
Do what? Okay.
I might mention that when the Planning and Zoning Board met on this, Chairperson Gwynn asked the board to consider the consistency statement for rezoning. Mr. Cluis motioned the rezoning was not consistent based on the fact that all properties in the area are zoned R8, and excuse me, and the rezoning would create spot zoning, and they voted 4-1 to deny the request on that. So,
I'm gonna ask, so to the citizens, for you all, the biggest thing is the future. So just to all the citizens, so your thing is the future, what the propensity of it can cause. Is that what we're hearing?
Well, yes, I mean, exactly, because my understanding is once something is rezoned to an R6, then it will be, all of those things can be allowed in the neighborhood.
that's right.
And that's what I don't think we need to do at this moment. I mean, I really don't want my neighborhood to have all of these other types of facilities in it.
Just wanted to make sure we were clear.
You're interested in integrity of your neighborhood.
Do what,
And
sir?
keeping it as a residential and the integrity of your neighborhood, you want to keep it as a residential.
Yes, I do. I want to keep it as an R8.
R8, I
And
understand
not allow
that.
it to go to an R6.
I see, I understand completely.
Thank you.
And the value of your homes and your neighborhood. I got
Well, it very well could, because I mean, I have seen when you start putting those, when you start putting different types of facilities in a home, in a neighborhood, then people are not gonna want to move there, because if they find out that there's a, and I say this because I see some of these things that have occurred for, because it's a very broad term when you say a medical facility or clinic. Well, it can be with a rehab, people can come in, and I just don't want all of that to be going on. I deal with that on a personal basis. I don't need to deal with it in my community. And so that's why I'm against it becoming an R6, because it's going to open up for all of those type of different facilities to come in the neighborhood.
understand.
Okay? If you've got any more questions.
The safety of your neighborhood.
Well, sir.
You're interested also, it would into the safety of your neighborhood.
Oh, definitely, because the thing about it is when you start having an increased number of residents of a certain age, young or old, you're then gonna need to have security a little closer to watch them. Like I said, if a Alzheimer's unit is allowed to be built on that property down the road, Locust is a hill, and these people are gonna fall and get hurt, and then they're gonna be all over the place. Substance abuse clinics can go there. I don't think that should be happening.
Daycare could go there.
Do what, sir?
A daycare could go there, and that would
Daycare
leave a
can
whole
go
lot.
there, and that area is not a safe area, in my opinion, unless the city's gonna go and flatten out everything. Children can get out. That means they're gonna be in an enclosed area, and if they get out, they can get hurt down there, because it's just not gonna be as secure of a place. And there is wooded area this way, and across from here, and different things, and so I'm just against it.
I see.
And it's just in a precarious position anyway, going up a hill, getting out of the existing driveway, that type of thing. You're getting out where you're blind on one side on a hill, so that could cause issues as well.
Just for some clarification, here's the names of the people that letters were sent to. Lula Martin, Kenya Nicholson, David Davenport, Courtney Braddock, Graves Properties, Convenience Corner, Hugh and Josephine Brigman, Christopher Clark, Robert Brigman Jr., and Charles and Linda Hall. That's who all the letters were sent to.
Just a question, why was it sent to Convenience Corner?
It has to do, and I don't know, I can't quote you on that, Ms. Strickland can, but, yeah. It just depends on who owns the property close to it. Okay, question now, council, is on this consistency statement. We've got, go one of either way. We can either say that the council approves the rezoning is presented, that it's consistent with the property around it, or the Hamlet Council can move to recommend denial. But the application is not fully consistent with the City of Hamlet zoning ordinance. So I need a motion one way or the other, or comments.
How did the zoning committee?
The zoning committee voted 4-1 that it did not,
Deny it.
yeah, to deny it because it was spot zoning. And there's quite a lengthy bit of information from around the state here about spot zoning. And, yeah, that's the whole, that's about 6-8 pages right here where it's been through the courts and everything. And,
Do you want me to give you the condensed version of the answer to that?
sir?
I can give you the short answer to Commissioner Covington's. Yeah, so the short answer is, not all spot zoning is illegal in North Carolina.
That's right.
You first ask, is it spot zoning? And I can go into the factors if you want. Ultimately, a court decides that, but I think this probably would be. It's a small piece of land surrounded by a uniformly zoned area. It's all R8. And the change in zoning would confer some benefit on this property. Now they can do more uses than the neighbors. So that's probably spot zoning. In North Carolina, though, then you have to decide, is there a reason for it? So if you say, well, it's consistent with our comprehensive plan, or we really need that in that area, there may be a reason that it's okay. But if you don't have a clear reason that you need it, then the spot zoning is considered illegal. And I think you all can just stop and say, it's spot zoning, we're not interested in that, if you want. That could be one reason to turn down the zoning if that's the direction council wants to go.
Well, for my part of it, just adding to it, I would be inclined to approve this zoning if the zoning went just to the property owner and not to the property. If we knew that it wouldn't get into something like, Jeff, if you sold the land or you sold the property to where some of that stuff could come, but it goes with the property. In my opinion, I mean, for my part, I would make a motion to say that it does not meet the zoning requirements of the city and deny it based off the fact that it would be spot zoning. And having said that, I mean, I'm looking at a group of people and everybody in the back, friends that I know back there on both sides. I know most everybody back there. And this is just one of the things where, you know, you whenever you sign up to come to these meetings and get on the council, you have to make decisions that sometimes people are going to be happy with it, sometimes they're not. But I think legally, in my opinion, the obligation is to go with the consensus of the planning and zoning that denied it and deny the request.
Okay, I have a motion at this time for denial that it does not comply with the Hamlet zoning ordinance.
I'll second the motion.
All right, I've got a second. Any further comments on that?
I'd just like to say, reiterate what Councilman McQueen said. Appreciate all the interest in the citizens and of Hamlet coming out, showing your interest and your support for your neighborhood and for your city. And I thank each and every one of them. Good show.
Okay, so on the consistency statement, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. All right, now we have to have a vote on either approve or deny the rezoning.
Make a motion that we deny the rezoning request.
Okay, I have a motion.
I'll second it.
And I have a second. Any further discussion?
Just in doing that, Jeff, thank you for taking the initiative to, you know, make our city better by investing in it. And unfortunately, this would go against what the state law would say, and it would open the town up to possible litigation in the future. But I do want to express that thank you for that on your behalf, and thank you all for coming as well, because this is how it works. Thank you to every one of you.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to deny the zoning at, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Okay, rezoning is denied on that property. And again, we thank everybody for coming tonight. Jeff, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me.
Okay. Is there anyone here tonight from Hospice?
There is.
Is anyone here from Hospice? Are you from Hospice, sir?
Yeah, good evening. My name is Arturo de Aguilar, and I work for Hospice.
Yes, sir.
And I came to receive something.
Okay. We have a proclamation for you. National Hospice Palliative Care Month, which is November of 2020. Whereas for more than 40 years, hospice has helped provide comfort and dignity to millions of people, allowing them to spend their final months at home surrounded by their loved ones. Whereas the hospice model involves an interdisciplinary, team-oriented approach to treatment, including expert medical care, quality symptom control, and comprehensive pain management as the foundation of care. Whereas beyond providing physical treatment, hospice attends to the patient's emotional, spiritual, and family needs and provides family services like the respite care and bereavement counseling. Whereas palliative care delivers expertise to improve quality of life and relief from pain, can be provided at any time during an illness, the hospices are some of the best providers of community-based palliative care. Whereas in an increasingly fragmented and broken healthcare system, hospice is one of the few sectors that demonstrates how healthcare can and should work at its best for its patients. Whereas 1.55 million Americans living with life-limiting illnesses and their families received care from the nation's hospice programs and communities throughout the United States in 2018. Whereas hospice and palliative care organizations are advocates and educators about advanced care planning that help individuals make decisions about the care that they want. Whereas the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services have pledged to put patients first in all of its programs, including hospice, ensuring a coordinated and patient-led approach to care, protecting patient choice and access to individualized services based on a patient's unique care, needs, and wishes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Bayless, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Hamlet City Council, do hereby proclaim November 2020 as National Hospice and Palliative Care Month and encourage citizens to increase their understanding and awareness of care at the end of life, discuss their end-of-life wishes with their families, and observe this month with appropriate activities and programs. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand the 10th day of November and cause the seal to be affixed. And if you'll step forward just a minute, I would...
Come on up here, son. Yeah, man. Smile.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
The next item of business is proclamation of Veterans Day. We enjoy doing this every year. And it's whereas the veterans in our community have served their country during peace and war and have kept our democracy safe. And whereas November the 11th, tomorrow, is designated and set aside to honor all those who fought, died, and became disabled while defending this nation. And whereas it is fitting that a period of time be set aside to honor and show respect for these great men and women. Now, therefore, I, Bill Bayless, by virtue of the authority vested in me as a mayor of the city of Hamlet, do hereby urge all citizens in our community to reflect on the democratic freedom and recognize the great contribution that veterans have made possible for each of us by paying tribute on November the 11th of 2020. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and cause to be affixed the seal of the city of Hamlet. Bill Bayless. Item number 10, public hearing number 2, text amendment to the zoning ordinance, meeting times of the planning board. If you will look at it, all they have done is change their time. Am I correct on that? Moved it to 6 o'clock?
That's correct.
Still be the same date. Council, what are your wishes on this? Have a motion to adopt.
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Okay. Item number 11 is consideration of ordinance 20-04, disposing of personal property. Mr. Christian?
Yes, sir, Mayor. This ordinance would delegate the express authority to the city manager to dispose of personal property less than $30,000. The primary purpose of this is to comply with state law and give the department heads the discretion to surplus of small items that they don't need. Large items such as dump trucks or large assets that are valued at greater than $30,000 and real property are disposed of differently. So this ordinance would just allow for the department heads and the city manager to determine what items need to be surplused and how to get the highest value for the city.
Did we not, a year or so ago, change this for, something in my head says we made a change in this back then, but.
I thought we did too, but
Yeah.
you don't.
I think that the
I think we changed the contract limits on them doing contracts.
There was something there.
And they do it with the city manager, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Their own.
That's correct. Yep. And anything over that value, state law requires it to come to the council. Councilman McQueen mentioned the same thing that you did to me, and I think there was a purchasing policy that had some similar
I believe
thresholds.
That was it.
But I wasn't here, and I'd asked Gail, city clerk, before we put this on the agenda if it had been done, and there was no record of it. So at a bare minimum, that's just where we're at.
And for what it's worth, I can't remember, but it may be that the board authorized the manager to enter into certain contracts.
We did.
Up to certain
I know
value.
we did
That could be what it is.
This is the disposing.
It's been since you were here, so that sounds, that sounds right. Yeah, I think it was. Mr. Morphus, is that within what you would consider a normal guideline for town
It
our
is,
size?
particularly with smaller items. I mean, otherwise, the manager just has to bring it to you every few months, which is, some towns do that, but it's equally common to have a policy that the smaller items are disposed of with, under the manager's guidance.
Could I ask a question? How will you dispose of this property?
My personal preference is to use the clearinghouses like GovDeals or the surplus websites because those folks are good at what they do at getting the most bang for the buck for the city. I know in some cases when they've sold properties and they have homes on them, they'll sell the landscaping first. They piecemeal everything and get the highest dollar. So that's my preference, and it objectifies it quite a bit.
The only thing that does is it just clarifies so that nobody come back later and say, well, he sold such and such to so-and-so.
Yeah. It's all documented, and that's my preference.
Excellent. That was my whole point.
Right.
Okay, what are your wishes on this, council?
Can
Authorize it?
can that amount be raised?
It cannot. State
No.
and correct. Is that correct?
Yeah,
So state law limits that authority to 30,000, such that anything over that is required by law to come to the city council.
How many times can you do that?
And
Could a department head, how many times a year physical year could he do that?
as many as is required for the efficient operation of the city. So if a department head wants to clean stuff out once a month, then we can put it listed once a month, once a week, every day. But we'll try to do some things that are a little more organized than that and more efficient.
I see.
Yes, sir.
That's per item and not total, right? Is that what you're
Correct.
saying? Okay.
Correct.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
And just one other thing, and Mr. Christian already said this, but real property of any sort has to come back to
through
you
it.
all.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah. That's a good point. Council, what are your wishes on this? Approve or disapprove, what?
Make a motion to approve
Okay.
that the city manager dispose of the property in accordance with the law.
Up to 30,000.
I
Okay.
second.
I have a second. Any further comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Okay. Next item of business, item number 12 is demolition at 216 to 218 Spring Street. That's a two-story brick house over there that got burned some time ago, and Ms. Strickland's been trying to get rid of that piece of property forever. What are your wishes on this, council?
When I've read through the ordinances and the compliances of the city, whenever property gets, and it's defined in there, but whenever a property gets so dilapidated for unsanitary reasons, safety reasons, all, doesn't the city have the right to go in there and take it down for the safety of the community and the city?
Go ahead, Mr. Morris.
That's absolutely right, Mr. Sellers. The way it works is there has to be an enforcement process, and then at some point, you all adopt the ordinance, which is what's in front of you tonight. And after that ordinance is adopted, then the city can go in and do the demolition work if necessary. And, you know, of course, Ms. Strickland heads that up, and I think Hamlet's practice has been every year y'all budget a certain amount of money, and then you do as much demolition as you can afford to do.
So that would be at the city's expense when they,
Y-
demolish. Well, what about the property owner on it? They're not liable for any of the costs?
Well, that's a great question. So what'll happen is demolition work is done, and then you send a bill to the property owner. I mean, and I'm sure you're well aware of this, the property probably wouldn't get to this state if the property owner were there actively involved. So what generally happens is a lien gets put on the property. And if the property is ever sold, then the lien has to be cleared, or meaning that we get money back, or the lien continues on. What I usually advise local governments is don't consider this a money-making prospect.
No.
I mean, you're probably not going to get your money back, but there is that lien, and
The
sometimes
county,
you do.
put it bluntly, the county will sell it, and the county will get the money, and we won't see anything. That's just the whole story right there.
Mm.
We tear it down, we pay the money to tear it down, but the county gets the property and sells it, and they get the money.
No, not do.
I don't ever recall in the last 20 years us getting a penny off anything we tore down.
I think we might have had one sale where we got some money, but again, it's never like a break-even proposition.
I know, we never.
No, sir.
Cost taxpayers.
Well, if the county sells the property and we have a lien on it, doesn't the lien have to be satisfied before they can use their title?
Let
Well,
Mr. Morphus answer that.
It does, but again, if the property sells for less than the total outstanding debts, then, and I can never remember the priority of liens, but it essentially goes taxes, then special assessments and our liens, and then other stuff. So sometimes the property will get sold by the county for taxes, and we may or may not get any money on that lien.
Mr. Morphus, did the city reach out to the owner several times?
Yes.
Made
Yes,
several
sir.
attempts?
Yeah, actually, I think usually these things are years in the making by the time we get to this point.
And just so that you know, Mr. Stewart, and this is for the whole council, there's a statutory process that we have to follow, and we have to do an inspection. We have to notify the owner. There's an opportunity for them to present information at a hearing. So there are opportunities in the process by the time it gets to you all tonight.
And most of the time, it's already got fines on it for being in violation of our ordinances anyway, and then tearing it down, you're just doubling it. But if you don't do it, then, you know, they're just sitting there, eyesore, safety issues and things like that.
Said he had not been heard from since March 1st of 2017.
Yeah.
Oh, that's in there? Okay.
So we do have, let's see, I had a motion. Did I have a motion on this?
So moved.
Okay, I've got a motion.
Second.
Have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Item number 13, consideration of resolution 2020-05, International Tie Disposal Incorporated. There is a company who wants to come in up there on railroad property and put in a plant that burns used railroad ties. And they're going to have, initially, they're going to have as many as 500,000 used railroad ties stacked up there. It's within 1,250 feet, I believe it is, of our 2,500 feet of our water site, plus there's over 10,000 people that live up in this area that actually get water off of this. Excuse me. Mr. Christian, do you want to comment on this before we pass this resolution?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You know, we talked about this at the last meeting, and Mr. McQueen asked me to get information from the county, which I got some information, and I shared that with the council. And at this point, we're asking, this resolution is formally asking Department of Environmental Quality to have a public process, which they're not required to have, but they have discretion on whether or not they do have a public process. So I think it is meaningful for the city council to request this of DEQ because of the impact that will have on our utility, on our extraterritorial jurisdiction, and our corporate limits are not that far away. So I think it's reasonable to get meaningful public input before this permit is approved, and that's what this request is.
I'm going to read this resolution regarding construction of international tide disposal. Whereas the city of Hamlet is a municipality located in North Carolina, and whereas land owned by CSX has been proposed to be used by International Tide Disposal Incorporated to dispose of creosote-treated railroad ties through a process known as pyrolysis. Whereas the city of Hamlet's water system serves over 10,000 people and the source of our water is less than 2,500 feet from the proposed development site, and whereas the Hamlet City Council has concerns regarding the proposed permit in its current form, and whereas the Hamlet City Council believes there are too many unanswered questions and uncertainties regarding the pyrolysis process, including but not limited to how pollutants created in the process will be trapped and contained on site. Now therefore be it resolved that the Hamlet City Council hereby requests that NC Department of Environmental Quality inform and engage the City of Hamlet and the Richmond County community as the agency considers the permit application, and specifically request that, number one, public notice be given prior to the approval of the proposed quality permit for international tide disposal. Two, that the City of Hamlet be added to the division's mailing list for air quality permit notices. Three, the director determines that a significant public interest does exist and public interest will be served by requiring a public comment period and a public hearing on the permit application. Be it further resolved by Hamlet City Council, the city manager is instructed to forward a copy of this resolution to all state and local agencies deemed appropriate. Council, what are your wishes on this?
I move that we adopt.
Okay. Have a motion to adopt. Have a second? Okay. Any further comments from council on this?
I'd like to ask Mr. Morphus, with this particular thing that's being proposed, and it being so close to our water facility, to our water lake, to our water source, is there anything you can think of as far as any EPA guidelines or anything like that that would be relevant to that? Because the concern to us is 10,000 plus water customers that we service from that water source, and with that process being, done there, just the proximity to our property that we own. Is there anything you can think of as far as that, federal or state?
Well, really the question asked is what are the permits that are required? And to be candid, I have not looked into all the permits that are required. We know that air quality is one permit, and I think that's one reason that the manager has asked, and you all are looking at approving this resolution, is so there can be meaningful public comment. I'm not an engineer, and I can't talk to you about the environmental effects of pyrolysis, but there are people who can talk about that, and I think that could be certainly one area where we can provide comment. There may be some other options. I'd like to be able to discuss that in closed session, and then if the council wants, we can look and see what other kinds of permits are required. I just don't know off the top of my head if there's wetlands permits or any or sort of other things. I mean, the air quality is the big one, and so but we can look into that if y'all want.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Okay. Thank you, council. Council, item number 14 is approval of tax releases. You have that before you. If you have any questions on that. If not, I would ask for an approval.
Move that we approve as presented.
Have a motion to approve?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. All right, moving along to other business. At this time, we'll go to city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. I'd like to first thank American Woodmark, one of our local county industries here. they, and in partnership, or at the request of the Hamlet Depot Board and our museum director, Michelle Pressler, gave a grant to the Depot Board in the amount of $1,500, and they were very grateful for that. And they're going to put that money to good use down there while they have some time to, prepare for a time when we can reopen. So, met Bob Young, the manager of the plant. They came down and presented that to the Depot Board, and we're just very grateful for their corporate citizenship. We spent a lot of time this last month having some phone issues, so we're currently shopping to kind of find a solution for that problem. And that's it's kind of mundane, but it's very important that we can all communicate. And sorry if you've had any issues getting in contact with us, but we're working on that. City Hall is closed tomorrow in observe of Veterans Day. There will be no interruption to services in terms of garbage pickup or leaf and limb collection. We've managed, Mr. Stubbs and his crew have managed to make sure there's no gaps in that, and those folks will have a day off another day. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge some of the loss that we've had in our community. Of course, Gail's husband and some others on our staff that have just had some unexpected loss recently, and it's not limited to our staff. There's a lot in our community, and so my heart goes out to all those families and all those folks. And please just be kind to your neighbors and think of others and try to support each other, because times are really tough. So, but we'll get through it, and if you need us, you can call us anytime, and we'll try to help you however we can. So, thank you.
Anyone have any questions for the manager?
Yeah, where do we stand with the tree board and the trees that on Main Street and Hamlet Avenue?
Yes, sir. So I met with the tree board president, vice president, and treasurer, and we had a great conversation about them making a project happen to plant trees on Main Street and Hamlet Avenue, the full extent of Hamlet Avenue, which I think was a large topic of discussion, which they did not realize there were tree beds below the railroad tracks, and I believe there's 5 or so above and 5 or so below. And so we talked quite a bit about that, and I told them in no uncertain terms that we would like to see a proposal from them, to consider, but that we had no issues with it individually, and that we look forward to making a good project happen to beautify our downtown area. I will add, though, that one of the after we received that, which I have not yet received, but the president and I have gone back and forth on a few details to make sure that that happens in a good way. The one thing is that the Main Street here is a DOT right away, so we've got to make sure that once we understand what they want to do, that we get the blessing from the engineers at the division office or the district office, depending on who governs that at DOT. But yeah, I think that we're planning on making that happen. But right now, I think they're trying to determine, the timing of their installation and the cost and the budget. And
so they're looking at it to report back.
That's correct. Yep. And I believe they're trying to do some fundraising to kind of, like I said, I don't think they expected those others. So they were getting budgets together, and some of our corporate citizens, I think they're trying to reach out to see what they can do to help. And since that meeting that I had with the leadership of the tree board, I have not. I got a call from the treasurer recently, and I assured her there were no issues. I was just waiting to hear back from them with their plan. So,
okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please keep us informed on that. I've been looking forward to that for a while.
Sure.
Not necessarily through them. It's just luckily that they're going to be able to help us out.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Anyone else? If not, we'll move along to comments of council. Ms. Covington?
I really don't have any comments to make, particularly except to extend my sympathies to Gail Strickland and her family in the loss of Butch. And I think, as we discussed earlier, we all knew that he'd been in declining health, but we didn't anticipate anything this sudden. And also, I'll repeat again about Thad Ushery's wife. Thad's been a part of Richmond County government for years and years and years and years, and he and Mary Jane were factors in our community, generous and kind to people. They were the personification of generosity. And just extend my sympathies to him and to all of our employees who've lost people and their families over the last month. And as Matt said, it's just a different time, and, you know, for whatever reason, so just, I guess we'll just hang in there, pray that it gets better, so.
Thank you. Mr. Sellers?
I'd like to also offer my condolences to the Strickland family for the loss of their husband and loved one. And I'd like to also say goodbye to our Chief of Police, Masters. And I would like to wish him success in his new journey and his new endeavor, and wish him very well. And I'd like to thank all the veterans for all their sacrifices and all their service to keep this great land great. And I'd like to wish everyone a happy and safe Thanksgiving. That's all mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sellers. Mr. Stewart?
First, just want to say thank you for the tire disposal proclamation. That is something that we definitely don't want to lay down on, and I appreciate that. The Strickland family, condolences, love, blessings, hugs to Gail, holds the glue to our city and board and council and all that great stuff. So thank you to the city, and also to the citizens of Hamlet. Every day we see numbers, 20, 30, 40 numbers with COVID. Please continue to wear your mask. Please continue 6 feet as possible. Stay home as possible. But it's the pandemic's still here, and it's not going anywhere if we don't do all the things we need to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
Well, I think Mrs. Covington and Oscar Sellers have summed it up pretty well as far as what my thoughts would be in sending condolences to the Strickland family and the Usseries particularly. That's about all I got to say at this time.
Mr. McQueen?
Yeah, just like to thank the Hamlet Tree Board Beautification for coming up with a plan to help us with Main Street and Hamlet Avenue. Looking forward to seeing that. I'd like to also thank all the veterans for their service to our country as well. And I'd just like to say thank you for the people that came tonight that took part in the process. I mean, you very seldom see that, and that's a real positive thing. I would also like to compliment and say a word of thank you to our mayor for issuing the proclamation against the proposed tire plant out there. I think that's a true method of leadership there. And for me being on the council and a citizen of this county, I want to personally thank you for that. Far too many times, rural America has to deal with these things because we are rural and poor. And this is one thing we do not need to. We don't need to let the grass grow under our feet on this. We need to.
Right.
We need to put pressure and do all we can, when we can, to make sure this does not happen this close to our water source. Other than that, just like to wish everybody a happy holiday season. Stay safe, and will the employees continue doing a great job. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I'm extremely hopeful now that we're going to have a big change up there on the county commission, and I'm hopeful that they will tend to have a little bit more communication with us before they jump into some things. And I have personally called several of them and talked to them. I said, you know, we need better communication. We need to know what's going on up there, and you need to know what's going on over here. And I said that's been the biggest thing, and so I'm hopeful we'll see where it goes. I do want to offer condolences to the Strickland and the Ussery family. The Strickland family has struggled for quite a while with Butch's illness, and so we do want to be sure we give our condolences. We thank, again, the citizens who came in tonight and participated. It is always great to have people come in and participate. And hope everybody has a good Veterans Day. We've got a number of veterans in this county, and it's good to be recognized. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. It's going to be tough. And I'm like Mr. Stewart on this thing. You know, we just can't stick our head in the sand on this COVID-19. it's not getting any better, and until something happens. But, you know, bad as we hate to have to walk around with a mask on our face and stay 6 feet away and can't shake hands or hug, I said, we've just got to do it, you know, and I have to say a whole lot for Billy and our workers. The workers have been relatively well. We've not had anybody that has had any serious problems, and it's just dedication on their part to do this. And Billy, we appreciate it. Thank you. Tell the guys. And other than that, I don't believe I've got anything else tonight. And I will go now. We need to go into have a motion to go into closed session per NC General Statute 143, 318, 11A, 3 and 6, attorney-client privilege and personnel matter. Any motion?
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. We stand in closed session at this time.